let's talk handmade Christmas decorations. So I've been crawling through Pinterest recently, looking at handmade Christmas decorations, which of course I don't have the time to make all of, if any of, between now and Christmas, but you might have time to make one or two of them. And you might fancy making some to pack away for next year. There are even some that are suitable for making with kids, so that might help you get some time to do some other bits and pieces in the run up to Christmas next week, as certainly in the UK, schools are breaking up. It's the last week of term where I live, so I had my last day yesterday. My work is still open till Saturday, but I don't work Thursdays or Saturdays, and we're not open on Fridays. Some schools I think might be going to the end of the week in this county. Some schools were broken up last week, some schools were broken up yesterday. So your kids are probably going to be driving you bonkers already. So yeah, I will include a few that are suitable to do with primary age children. I've put together a Pinterest board, so we'll switch around and I'll share my screen with you. So we'll have a little look at my handmade Christmas decoration wish list, which I will pop a link to down in the description below. So you see I've got lots of different bits and pieces of things that have grabbed my fancy, varying degrees of complexity. Most of them look like they're relatively simple to put together for if you're familiar with the craft that they're using. Some of them are links to where you can purchase the finished item, some of them are links to patterns, some of them are tutorials, some of them might just be the picture, but you should be able to work out how to do them if you're a crafty kind of person. So what I've done from here is I've pulled out about 10 of the ideas to take a little closer look at. So let's start with some pine cone related crafty decorations. So I figured if you've got kids, they've probably collected some pine cones, and it's not too hard to go out and collect some pine cones yourself. At least if the kids are anything like me, they will have collected some pine cones. First up, we have this very simple little decoration. It's got some faux snow sprayed onto it. Could be done with white paint, silver paint, that kind of thing, just at the butt end of the pine cone. And they've been hung from ribbons, so they've had one of those little screw with a little loop at the top, screwed into the butt end of the pine cone, and a jump ring attached to that, and then tied on with ribbons of different lengths to create this little display. So nice and quick, nice and simple. If you've got pine cones lying around, that'd be a good way to keep older children entertained. The little children are going to struggle with that. They can help with the painting, but they're going to struggle with screwing the thing in the end of the pine cone. So if you've got an older sibling to your child, they can probably help. Or if you just want to spend a bit of quiet time on a rainy day, because let's face it, the weather is going to be dreadful at some point over the holidays. It always is, because then you have to keep your kids in rather than taking them out. Next pine cone related craft, they've listed this as fairy tutorials. I would call these guys elves rather than fairies. So they're using felt to make little scarves and hats, and then they've got a little bead for their head, a little face drawn on, and little felt mittens as well. So that you could very simply work out how to do. The challenging bit would be the feet, to make sure that your pine cone elf stands upright, but that's rather cute. Again, primary school children, particularly kind of year 3 upwards, so for those of you in the States, that's 2nd grade, we'll be able to do that fairly independently. Year 2 kids in 1st grade, depending on the child, they might be able to do it independently, or they might need a little bit more assistance, particularly with the cutting out of the felt. But if you provided them with all the component parts, I'd probably supervise them if you're using a hot glue gun, because that's probably the most sensible method of gluing these together. Any liquid glue should work, but glue gun's probably going to be a little bit more secure. I wouldn't use your stick glue, but a liquid PVA should probably work, which most kids will be familiar with from school. So that's my pine cone related one. So moving on to paper crafts. Now this one, quilling is not difficult, but it takes a bit of getting your head round, and you need a bit of dexterity. So Adults certainly, older kids probably. Again, sort of year 3 and upwards should be fine for doing this sort of a project. It might be a little bit too fiddly for younger kids. So this is a quilling ornament. It's not stuck onto a backing. It's got a loop to hang it from a tree or in the window at the top, and it's a bit of an elevation of your paper snowflakes, which is obviously your classic let's keep the kids entertained during the Christmas holidays kind of craft. And on that note, there is a simpler paper decoration here. So it's just strips of paper, different lengths, connected at the top and the bottom. I think they've used the split pins. I think they might be called brads in the States, you know, the ones that you put through, and they have like little legs that you spread apart to hold them in place. I think that's what they're using there. That's certainly what I would use because they're fairly easy to get hold of. They've used strips of paper from books in this one. I wouldn't because I don't want to cut my books up. But you could use wrapping paper, you could use newspaper, any scrap paper you've got lying around. You could get some brown paper, get your kids to decorate the brown paper, and then cut that into strips. And anything left over, you could use paper chains, which is always, again, a classic, keep your kids entertained during the Christmas break kind of craft. Now moving on, this is another strips of paper ornament. So for this one, rather than having it 2D, they've turned the strips into a ball. This particular example is using wallpaper, which is a stiffer paper, and brown paper decorated would work as well. And so they've cut strips and they've attached them at the top and the bottom. Not entirely sure what with. I think it's a string and beads type situation. I'm sure if you linked through to the blog, they'll give you more information. It could be like one of the things you put through beads for jewellery, the metal pins. It could be one of those. That would work. But I suspect a decent length of string would work too. So that's my paper options. Now, this would be a very simple one. Most kids would be able to manage this relatively independently from kind of preschool upwards. Bit of string, a few beads, draw a face on it, make some snowmen. You would obviously have to help your smaller kids with knotting at the bottom, but they can do the stringing of the beads, no problem at all. And that will help with their manual dexterity as well, so good sort of development points. There, little snowman, you could do other little characters, you could change the colours of the beads and make elves and all sorts of things, or Father Christmases. Again, with the buttons, again, younger children will be able to do the stringing of this. If you tie a knot in a bit of string for them, they can string the buttons on, using the holes in the buttons to create the ornaments. So we've got a snowman, a Father Christmas, and a Santa hat in this particular example. I mean, this is a listing of somebody who's made them to sell, but it would be a simple craft to do at home with your kids as well if you didn't want to purchase them, or if you needed something to do. And I know as a kid I loved playing around with my mum's button box and my nan's button box, sorting them out and having a fiddle. There's something about buttons and children, there's quite a fascination there, so take advantage of it. And now we have some more sort of yarny, twiny related options. So this one, this was actually demonstrated on Morning Live in the UK earlier in the week. So if you go on to BBC iPlayer if you're in the UK, or if you have a VPN, Jackie Joseph does a lot of crafty stuff on there, and Sarah, oh goodness grief, what's her surname? Can't remember. Northern woman. But they both do crafty bits, and I think it was Sarah that was doing the yarn wrapped stars on the show earlier this week. So you'll be able to go through the Morning Live back catalogue for this week. Today is the 19th of December, so it was earlier than that. And that she demonstrates how to do them, but they are very simple. You'd be able to do that with your kids without any hassle if you have kids, or you could do them by yourself. Be one you could do in front of the TV, quite enjoyable. And you could use yarn, you could use string, use twine, whatever you've got to hand. And we're going to move on to some crochet now. Crocheted icicles. Now I have icicles on my tree, so I've got ones I bought in the shops. They're plastic and glitter, and glitter gets everywhere. But these ones, you could use a sparkly yarn if you wanted to, or just a plain yarn. The size of the yarn that you use is going to make a difference to the size of the ornament. You're just crocheting a spiral. So this is a fairly simple one. The link in Pinterest for this one is a link to the pattern. So if you don't know how to do a spiral of this kind, the pattern is available on Etsy. It's listed at £4.48 according to Pinterest, so that's somewhere around $5–6, I think, roughly, as a guesstimate. So yeah, so they would be quite a good replacement to the plastic ornaments if you were in that mind. And my last one to show you, before I let you go and explore the Pinterest board that I'm going to link down below for you, is this gingerbread knitted wire ornament. Now, people do sell these, and they're essentially an I-cord around a mouldable bit of wire that's shaped. So you can find them with people's names, you can find them as in this case, as a gingerbread man, and all sorts of things. There's stars and all sorts. So whatever sort of shape, simple outline shape you want to create, you will be able to create with this I-cord around a wire type of situation. Something like a floristry wire would work, I would have thought. So it needs to be thick enough to hold up to the weight of the yarn and hold its shape, but thin enough that you can actually bend it. You don't want it too thick, or it's going to be a bit of a struggle. Or of course you can just go to Etsy and buy them. And this one is £8. So yeah, so that's the ones I was pulling out for you to have a closer look at. As I say, I will link the Pinterest board down below. There's all sorts of examples on there of different crafts. So I've included things like beading onto wire, beading onto string, things with pinecone, lots of things with paper, covering baubles with twine or yarn, or scrap fabrics to revamp them a little bit. There's quite a few macrame options in there as well, and also macrame Christmas trees and origami and that kind of thing. So most of them, if you don't want to purchase them, should there be a link to a purchasing site, which not all of them are, then you've quite likely, as a crafter, got some, if not all of the supplies at home to make. There are some, like the beaded baubles, same kind of style as the star I made a few years ago, where you're bead weaving into the shape of a bauble. You're going to need to probably buy quite a lot of beads to make that happen. And that will take quite a while to do, because they're small beads, it just takes time. Some of the macrame ones might take a little bit longer, but macrame is a relatively quick craft when you're working on a small scale. Some of the macrame ones are kind of this big, some of them are wall hangings. Paper crafts are always quite quick. Some of them are just combining together things that you found and foraged for, things like pinecone crafts, that sort of stuff. So you may have time to make one or two of them between now and Wednesday, or it might be stuff that you just save for next year or work on throughout the year, ready to have them to put out next year. You never know, I might get around to making one or two of them this Christmas to put in my boxes ready for next year, but I'm not holding my breath. I really need to start doing this sort of stuff a bit earlier, and maybe need to start doing some Christmas crafting in the summer, but that just feels weird. So yeah, so thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I look forward to seeing you in my next video. In the meantime, there is this one here that may be of interest, and I will see you soon. But until then, happy crafting and bye-bye for now.